Hello, American Downhiller fans, and welcome to the American Downhiller Podcast, episode number 9, presented by skiracing.com. Today, we will share our thoughts, stories, and memories of running the craziest, most dangerous, and wildest ride on the World Cup circuit, Kitzbuhel's Hahnenkamm, also called the Strife. It drops 2,800 vertical feet, not too challenging, covers exactly 2 miles, not that long. And last year's winning time was 1 minute 53 seconds. Not that tiring, but it is filled with the craziest I have ever skied on in my life. It is what all downhill courses are compared to. Hi, everyone. I'm Doug Lewis, 2-time Olympic downhiller, and I raced Kitzbühel from 1984 to 1988, and my 5th place in 1986 personally ranks higher than my World Championship bronze medal. If I had only one word to describe the Strife, that's a tough one. I'm going to go with crazy. Everything about it is off the charts. Hey, joining me are 3 of the fastest American downhillers in our history on the Strife. Founder of the American Downhillers, Marco Sullivan, a 4-time Olympian who raced Kitzbühel from 2003 to 2016 and had a career best 6th place finish in 2006. But he also DNF'd on the course and he lived to tell the story. Marco, it's tough. One word to describe the Strife.
I can't think of one word, but it's the showtime count. That's the hyphenated word, maybe.
It is showtime on the downhill circuit. Good one. AJ Kitt, a 4-time Olympian who raced kits over 10 years and was the first American downhiller to reach the podium in the modern era, a 2nd place in 1992. AJ, you're showing us the trophy. One word, if you got it, for Kitzbühel.
Consequential in a lot of ways, on the high side and on the low side. You know, you can have your biggest crash, you can have your biggest victory.
Awesome. Perfect. And finally, Darren Rawls, winner of 12 World Cup downhills, 12 World Cups, 2 of them at Kitzbühel, the only U.S. winner of the Hahnenkamm besides Buddy Warner. Darren became a Hahnenkamm champion in 2003 over Didier Couch by 5 hundies. He also won the Super G there in 2004. I want to hear all about being a winner there, but Darren, one word to describe Kitzbühel's course.
Strife.
Strife.
And it means challenge.
It means challenge. I think that's a perfect word for sure.
Physically, mentally, everything, it is a challenge.
All right. Before we get into the course, I do want to ask all of us, what was, the first time you heard about the Hahnenkamm, the first time you saw the Hahnenkamm, the first time you traveled there, what were your thoughts? And I'll go first at this one. So I'm a sophomore at Green Mountain Valley School. I was a slalom and GS superstar. I wanted to be Ingemar Stenmark. And I remember being at the common room of Witch's Hat, watching Wild World of Sports. This is back when I was 15 years old, a sophomore, and we saw Kitzbühel on television, and Corey Murdoch, a guy from the US, crashed so hard, almost like Brooker's crash at the bottom on the Zielschuss. And we all just could not breathe. We could not look away at this crazy crash. And we all looked at each other and we actually pinky swore. We all said to ourselves, we will never run that course. It is too dangerous. And 5 years later, I'm sitting at the start running Kitzbühel. But the course, when I first saw it, I thought, never in a million years would I run that. How about you guys? What did you first think of it?
Mine was similar to you, Louie. I kind of learned about it when I was a kid. I was at Mountain House School in Lake Placid as a, 14 or 15-year-old ski academy kid. And there was this older student at the school that all he talked about was racing the Hahnenkamm. And it's just like he was obsessed with it, to the point where it was like, this is kind of a joke, but what's this all about? That was my first introduction to it. And then when I first really saw it, my first most sort of famous memory is Brooker's crash. So then it got kind of paid off, like, oh, now I know why that guy was so into it and thought that this was like the ultimate experience in ski racing. And frankly, that's exactly what it is.
I was kind of opposite. I was frothing to ski this thing. I mean, all the hype and everything from the US ski team guys, how it's like such a big deal. And, it's like you make it down on race day, you acquire veteran status. I wanted to be a downhiller, and it was just something that I wanted to step up to and see what I was made of. So it was something I was really charged up for. And I did go to Kitzbuhel the first time before I even skied and walked down it in the summertime. And that kind of raised the bar even more, because when there's no snow on a hill, it's steeper. And I had a whole summer to think about it, sweating it, but fired up. And then I get there, and it was actually a little more tame with snow on it than it was seeing it just like dirt and grass.
I think for me, I don't have a real childhood memory of it, but I remember showing up there for the first time, and I just made it into the top 30. I was, rookie on the tour. It was my first time starting a training run in the top 30, I think, and I drew number 2. And so I was number 2 out of the gate, and Amat, Shuttle Andre Amat, like a childhood idol, was starting right behind me. And I told him it was my first time going, and he just started jibing me a little bit, like, oh, don't crash. This place is pretty scary. It's tough down there. And he's just giving me a little bit. And then I go down and I crash over the Hausberg. There was like a big fog bank, and I landed and couldn't see anything, and just like tomahawked into the fence and kind of hurt my leg. And I ended up not being able to race. But Amat came and found me after. He's like, oh, I'm so sorry, man. I didn't know you were actually going to crash. I was just trying to make it an experience for you. And so he felt really bad, but that was my first real experience on the Strife.
He spooked you. He's probably trying to mess with you a little bit, but then, yeah. Uh-oh. This kid just wadded up. Sorry, buddy.
Yeah.
Darren, your story reminds me, on my first trip to Europe, we went through Kitzbuhel as probably 17-year-old, and we stopped and we hiked Kitzbuhel in the summer. And this is when I was infatuated with it. I was scared for a while, but then I came infatuated with it. And I remember I was up the Steilhang, climbing up almost to the top, and I looked around, nobody was around. So I peed. I urinated on the Steilhang, saying, I got the better of you, and I will return and pee on you again. And luckily, I was claiming my turf. Luckily, it never got me. So that's a little too much inside baseball there. But so the most asked question I get is, what is going through your head when you're standing in the starting gate at Kitzbuhel? Darren, I'll throw this one to you.
Well, the lead up is the most challenging part of the race. I think just getting your mind in that space where you're ready to fully commit. Physically, you get yourself ready every race physically to go 100%. But this one was, I'd say, the most challenging because of the consequences on the line. How AJ's one word, consequential. He threw that one out there, and it definitely was. So, to me, it was just getting hyped up, going on my plan, knowing how to ski this hill top to bottom. And, breathing to me was a big deal because it kind of zoned me out and cleared my head. And the last thing I was thinking about was just full on attack. So there's a process of just thinking about it, getting all organized in your head, what you're going to do, maybe going over a few last details with the coaches over the radio, your teammates, but then lock into your plan and do not deviate, and just have a one track mind. And it's, freight training down this hill and going for it.
AJ, I'll throw it to you. Was what was going through your mind at Kitzbuhel different from any other race, and what were you thinking about?
In the starting gate, you need to be absolutely focused, and like I said earlier, consequential. You can't get off line on this course, right? I mean, if you get off line, you're in big trouble. And if you DNF, like miss a gate, you're going into the nets, and you'd be lucky if you don't get a helicopter ride. Like, there's just no room on the margins for mistakes, and that in the starting gate. And so the vibe and just the atmosphere at the start is different than anywhere else. I mean, most courses, it's just kind of, people are sort of chit-chatting and they're noisy, they're doing their job or whatever. And for the most part, it's dead silent at Kitzbuhel because people are so focused. And then, the inside of the starthouse is something that I always found really interesting. It's a really old building, and the Kitzbuhel Ski Club is part of the building, but where the starthouse is you kind of you're up the side of it, then you duck into a doorway, and then you're in this big room. And the building's super old. And when I was there, people would carve their names, and racers would carve their names in the wood inside the start house room. And everybody's name was up there. And I thought, okay, I'm not going to do this until I win. I'm going to hold this out for myself until I win. Then I'm going to carve my name in it. Well, I never won, so I still haven't carved my name in it. Yeah, just, looking out the starting gate at those first few gates, that it's so slick and icy, and that 6 seconds in, you're going to be leaving the ground at 60 miles an hour off the mouse volley jump. I mean, it's a harrowing mindset to overcome, and to leave that starting gate charging like you're going to go out there and beat the world is not an easy thing to decide to do, because I remember several times running that course just going, I just hope I cross the finish line standing up today. There was a few times I went out of the gate charging. I felt confident, but for the most part, it very much got your attention. Marco, what was in your mind?
I think it's important to note that racers are fired up. Being in the start, like AJ said, there's a ton of focus, not a lot of chitter chatter and extra content going on, but it's the pinnacle of our sport, and you're trained for that moment all season long, and you're there to prove yourself, and you can make or break your career on that run. And that's exciting for a professional athlete who's fully trained to do that, and to be able to rip down a course that has those kind of obstacles. It's really a proving ground. And I think that's important to note. People talk about like the fear and all that, but the fear is kind of pushed to the side once you're in the start gate, in my opinion. You're full focus, and you just want to make it happen and make a name for yourself.
For me, it was all about attacking the course more than I knew the course was going to attack me. And Darren, you used that word attack. I had to full on attack mode and tear it up, grunt, drool, spit, whatever it was. I had to raise my level to be more intense than what I was going to ski. And just to point it out, on every downhill, there's a place where you can get seriously hurt. Maybe two places, right? Hoonshof and the final turns. Or at Beaver Creek, it's Pizza Arena and one of the jumps. At Kitzbuhel, as we saw with Travis Ganong, you can get hurt and fall in the first gate. It is a risk from the start, especially to that finish, and you have to be ready to attack. Now let's break it down. Darren, from the start, about 30 seconds till you hit the road, it is just rock and roll. Take us through the start, the mouse volley, the compression, the carousel, and the Stahlhelm.
I started showing up in Kitzbuhel by turning up Metallica on the radio, rolling into town, starting it right there before I even stepped foot on in town. That's kind of what it was. Like, I had to ramp up to get to that moment a couple days later in the start house where I could fully attack, like we're talking about. Kicking out of the start gate, I'd say you could see the guys who want it. There's a handful of guys that really get out of the gate hard and are skating, as much as they can get out of the first couple, like maybe 3, pushes off the legs to start first turn. Those are the guys are, all in, ready to attack this thing. And you have to. There's no opportunity to just ease into this track. It's on, game on, right out of the starting gate. And the left foot on the first turn, there's a fall away there. So you have to kind of like come from behind a little bit and get that direction. I mean, your skis are, you're just starting to, you have good hard snow, but you're at slow speed and you got to get across the hill pretty quick. So you put a lot of power in that left foot. And then to me, that second turn was pretty important because I didn't want to climb up too high, set myself up. I wanted to just like use as much fall away as I could and trim off that entry to the next gate and get most of the turn done after. But you got to be careful because you want to be like lined up and squared up off that Mousa volley to have a good clean jump. But a lot of guys would set up and do an exit turn and come back like center, even to the right. My deal was like, I go in there more direct and just finish it off right before I'd be flying off Mousa volley to the left. So that was kind of my, I guess, way to differentiate myself. I was always fast in those first 2 splits, and that was part of it. by trimming line off, and I would save it for race day. I wouldn't give that up until it was race because I knew I could pull it off. And carousel, and my line there was to just go more direct and kind of slide the top of the turn. So it wasn't a very clean, nice turn. It was more just like you're like a slow drift and then hammer. But you had to the timing had to be really good there because you needed to be coming back, to the right to the top of the style hung. And that was still you can slide your skis without giving it so much, speed. You could do a little too much and hit the brakes a little too much there. So it was kind of like a feel kind of turn on a call there. And then there's a really cool roller on that left foot to juice into that and make that, nice flowy transition to that right foot on top of style hung. And that was a gate I'd try to hit. I wanted to be on that. I didn't want to and when I'm thinking about hitting it, just skimming it. So I wasn't getting sucked out to the right too far. But my main focus from there down was to be the fastest, put the fastest, speed on the clock going into the road, because leading into the road, with my size, I need to have as much speed as possible just to stay in the hunt on the flat section. But I'd say leading into that left foot on the road was really critical because it's blind, it's a fall away, it's a basketball turn, we call it. So you're going around the corner, and if you're up too high, you're going to drop down and get too close to the fence and lose momentum. And if you're too deep at the top, you're just run too much of a long, turn to that left foot or so. That was a challenge, actually hitting that up, just right. But I think that's the greatest thing about downhill is the puzzle, putting it together and trying to figure out lines and timing and where to pressure and all that. But it was game on from start to that section. It was about 26 seconds from what I remember. And then trying to cook onto the road. So, and the next section, you see it on TV.
I'm impressed to hear how much line variation you played with, Darren, because I always felt to some degree, whatever sort of timing and line I chose as I entered the carousel turn, that just dictated everything for me to the road, right? Sometimes I nailed it, and some days I was just searching, I was offline and couldn't change any of that. So that was just me. And the one thing that the one place I felt like I could adjust my line was off the mouse folly. The further right you are off mouse folly, the bigger the jump is, because it's kind of angled like this. So if you're coming off over here, you're woo, it's a much bigger jump, but you're set up better for the compression. But if you turn more off of that right footer above mouse folly and go a little bit further left, the jump's a little bit smaller and you're making a little bit more of an S turn. But I never really played with cutting off line up there. I was just trying to get from the start gate to the mouse folly jump as quick as I could. That was my mindset, just get there. And at that point, gravity takes over. You probably leave the ground at 60 and land at 80 off that jump. And then it's, time to stand up through that compression. So to me, it was all about rhythm and flow. I wasn't really playing with line.
Marco, did you enjoy that top 30 seconds, or was it get me through this so I can survive and make up time on the road?
No, I loved it, man. I probably wasn't the best up there, obviously, but I was kind of more in AJ's court where it was dictated by the hill. I'd go out, I'd try and have a few good skates, like Darren said, at least make people think you are looking for speed, and but no, for sure, having the mindset that you want to go fast, you got to attack that thing. And the carousel was always a bit of a crapshoot for me, because go in there and just like AJ said, sometimes your edges would hook up and you'd nail it. Sometimes one year ended up almost down by the fence on the skier's left, and then you're just trying to adjust your line so you can dive down into the style hung. And then I think the left footer at the bottom of style hung is probably the toughest turn, or at least top 3 toughest turns in ski racing, because you can't really see the exit onto the road until you're right on top of it. So the whole initiation of the turn in the middle, you're just bouncing along that side hill. And when you finally eyeball the exit, you're either pointed at the fence or you're pointed where you want to go. And we've seen a lot of guys eat that fence right there, because once you see it, it's already too late. You're committed.
I think we all had our best laid plans, but you then, as soon as you got onto the course, it changed, and you had to deal with the line that you ended up with. But I have to agree with Sully in the basketball turn, the left-footed Steilhung turn. You can't see anything, so you're just trying to believe. And I would never, even if I was super high, super direct, there was no confidence that I was going to be able to make that road until you came over that last little roll where the gate wasn't like, oh, it's going to be Christmas or it's going to be a nightmare. And then you went onto the road.
You're just waiting to appear around the other side of that basketball and have that fence like this. You're like, damn, I screwed it up.
Whack.
So interesting in this course is that the next thing you do for 20 seconds is ride a super flat road. It's become wider and wider. When I ran it in early 80s, it was like 8 feet wide. It was just really incredible part of downhill. Super flat. I'm going to throw this to Marco. Once you can finally breathe after Darren's 26 seconds and you're on the road, what is your focus?
Well, once you come onto the road, for me, first thing I took a breath. It's like, okay, I survived the top, got that done. And then it's actually a rare section on the World Cup where you're dead flat, dead straight, and you're in your wind tunnel tuck. You're trying to get as aerodynamic as you can, feel the skis super flat. It's a spot where, the old saying, you're not going to win the race there, but you could lose time or lose the race from between the road and the next real challenging sections on the bottom. So I would come onto the road, kind of take a couple breaths, think of my game plan for what was coming up. But then you fly off the road called the Alte Schneise jump. In certain years, that's a pretty substantial jump. You're flying 30, 40 meters. And it can also be super icy there on the landing, icy and bumpy, a little side hill. So it's mellower than the top, but still really got to be focused. And you go from the Alte Schneise onto the side-along jump and around a big right footer, which I don't actually know the name of, but it's a whole section that's a little bit mellower, but you got to be fully on it because there's a lot of little things there where you can lose tenths. Ultimately, I felt like you were always thinking about the Hausberg at that point. That was the next real challenging section, but you just had to be focused in the middle. And it's a part that gets overlooked a lot because oftentimes they don't show it on TV, at least the road part. But it is taking a breath and a bit of relaxation before the next real challenge. And that's kind of how I looked at it.
I like what Marco was saying about coming off of the Steilhung, and then first thing you did was breathe. Yeah. Because you're faster when you're relaxed. You cannot. Faster gliding when you're relaxed. Yeah. You're faster from the start to the road by all out, just like you said, Louis, spitting, grunting, fighting. It was a battle up there, and I made sure too. I'd hit the road and just let the air out and really try and get in that calm, relaxed position so I could let the skis move and just pull me down the hill.
I had the benefit of kind of running both courses. The section that Marco just talked about is kind of a new section. You go off of Alte Schneise and then you stay left and they gave you a new jump and kind of a wiggle turn. And then you bring it back into the old course right under Seidelbaum restaurant. Back in our day, Louis, when I started and when you were racing, you'd go off of Alte Schneise, which was you're going off of this road at, I don't know, 60 miles an hour, not really that fast, but it went from this really calm 20 seconds to you jump off of this thing and you land in a icy Mogul Field. And I just remember if I could ever grab a tuck partway down that thing, I felt like I nailed it because, and the other part of it is I wanted to fly as far as I could down the thing. If you pressed it really good, you're on the snow and just through this Mogul Field as long, forever. And I felt the longer I fly, the less moguls I got to absorb. But then we used to just kind of stay straight and go to the right of that little island where this new jump is, and then just make one big right-footed turn coming back in. And years before I raced it, Louis, you and I raced together, and Bill Johnson was on the team. And us young guys would just listen to stories from you guys about how gnarly that was. And like, you know, skiing down to Mogul Field, and, you know, some of the old downhillers when I was still in high school, like, you know, Chip Cochran had raced there, and he talked about, you know, tucking through Mogul Field. So, you know, I was going to school, you know, in Waitsfield, Vermont at GMBS. We'd go find a Mogul Field and try to tuck down a Mogul Field to prepare for the Hahnenkamm. And that's exactly what it was like. But nowadays, I mean, I went back a few years ago, and it was just, they groomed it and iced it, and it was perfectly smooth and, you know, glistening, you know, with the light. And so it's changed a little bit, but man, that middle section, you get 20 seconds of rest, but then you've got to get back into fully paying attention to what you're doing, because it really comes at you, especially now with this new section.
And like Marco was saying, there's a compression there. You come over like a sweet kind of like roller, and you're switching. And then there's an intermediate timer right there. And I could hear the announcer. This is the first time I could hear the announcer like light up. If you're killing it and you're fast, that announcer gets on that mic so loud and excited. And I've heard that a couple times going by. So it kind of gives you a little extra, like, I'm in the game, I'm in the hunt, like just keep pushing. But you've seen a lot of guys screw up there quite a bit. I think maybe they ease up a little too much. A lot of guys will come in there, they've like high-sided, hooked up weird, hit the fence, Bodie rode off the fence when you're there. Guys go on the inside of the hip. It's maybe because they're just like, oh, I got through another like pretty difficult section, and I just gotta like roll through this right footer. But that eats a lot of guys up.
I think, Marco, you said it the best. You may not be able to win it, road, Altenschneise, Larkenschuss, but we've all seen people lose it there. Bodie is a good example. He went off the net, just leaned in. You're not focused enough because you are thinking about the Hausberg and the Zielschuss coming up, because that is, to me, the gnarliest 20 seconds of downhill in the world. You go off that
That's
Hausberg.
a mistake. You do not want to be making, thinking about that, Lou. That's what we talked about before. It's taking one section at a time, but it's so easy to have that like looming in your head. Sorry, I just want to throw in there. Of Hausberg.
No, for sure. You gotta stay in the moment. And I think people are thinking ahead, and that's the wrong wing. So there's a nice Red Bull banner now, but not when AJ and I first started run, but it is craziness. I'll just explain it. You're on a left footer, you come off this jump, and it's blind, like a lot of Kitzbuhel. You land on this bank, you try to get as much right footer as you go over a slight basketball, and then you are riding a side hill that is, to me, I remember it as a cliff, a side hill cliff that you have to get on that right foot, and everything has to be there, and you're just holding on. And I used to just zero in on that gate on the Zielsprung. And if I could be on the left of it, Happy New Year, happy birthday. If I was on the right, you were in some serious trouble. You drive that and go to the bottom. But it is so intense. Each of you talk about your thoughts and maybe one of those rides that didn't go well or did well through that section, because it makes or breaks the race.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like Darren was saying, that's the spot for me in all of World Cup. That was the most, I don't know. It was the spot that I had to dig the deepest, right? Coming into those last turns after Sadalam, you're heading into those Super G turns around the Hausberg restaurant there, and you're just getting ready. This like blind drop off is coming, and you're like, yeah, I want to win this race. I want to get there as quick as I can, but I'm not really sure I'm ready for it, right? You're like, I got to dig deep for this, because I mean, again, it's just like once you drop off that thing, I mean, that's when you really start to hear the fans and feel it, because there's so many people at the bottom and they're screaming, and there's thousands of people on all sides of you. But it's full commitment. It's full commitment. You got to stay right off of Hausberg a little bit. You've got kind of a roller in the middle of that turn, that basketball turn. You've got to execute right. And for a few years there, I had the timing down, and where I would land, I would delay my pressure, and then I would go with it, and it would set me up just right going around that high gate at the beginning of the side hill. And if I could get that just right, and you weren't climbing too high to dump speed, and you weren't too low and having to hook back up the hill to get to that last gate at the Sprung, that was great. I mean, and you'd nail it. And then another thing that I think changed as well over time is that compression. at the bottom of the Zielschuss before the finish jump. I just remember like the first years I raced it, all I could think about was don't get squashed onto your tails in that compression, because you won't have time to recover forward before the jump. You'll just go off the jump and loop. And so like that was just one more thing that was like, don't lose focus, stay forward, you know, and your legs are smoked. Your legs are smoked in the Super G turns before Hausberg. And, you know, you're just hoping that they will respond in the side hill and into that compression. But then, man, I tell you what, going off that last jump, it was a sigh of relief, because if you nailed it, it's a nice long flight, you land and you're just straight into the finish line. And that's, for me, that was the first moment when I really felt relief was in the air off of the finish jump. Cause I kind of, at that point I figured I was going to make it.
Yeah. I mean, it was like a marbled staircase trying to like traverse on that. And coming off Hausberg Conte, that was always a sweet jump because it just drops right off, and then you land and make the switch to the right foot, and you go into that compression and try and trim off a little line there into the compression and just get all your momentum going across the side hill. You see guys that establish a momentum a little later and they're still getting sucked down the hill, and they're either going to pay with like fighting the whole way across to come back up, or they're going to go into the fence. And there's, you know, that's another spot where, I mean, you're feeling it. You're a minute and a half into the race. Your legs are, you know, you're fighting to hold on. And like you just mentioned, digging deep, just everything you got to like fight and try and hold a super clean edge, and then trying to get those arms in front to try and reduce any drag was a big focus for me. But you're holding on. You can't really give up until you pass that gate on the Zielschuss sprung there. You're just holding, and then just, you know, like clear that gate, and then it drops off. Then you can let it rip to the finish. But then, I mean, there's some big speeds there. I remember a couple years before I raced, I was looking at like, there was like 93 miles an hour. It was like, you know, I saw something like that, like 140 something clicks. Quick, you know, through there, and that jump is a fun one. But another thing I do too is like just let it fade right to the finish, because if you look at the hill, it does tilt a little bit like that. And I would just kind of, instead of holding it straight, my line was kind of always like going to the outside, like right third of the finish track. I just felt like I could make up a few more honeys down there. But picking it apart, you know, like always looking at ways to pick it apart and just make a little more speed.
I'm glad to hear you guys had so much respect for that turn and that traverse, because it was always in my head. And I know
everyone,
I mean, everyone just, you looked at that thing and there's so many off camber angles, and the compression after the Hausberg, you're right where you initiate your turn. If you're in the right place, is actually a compression, which, you know, if you're a ski racer, you know that when you hit a compression, what it does to your skis, it kind of bends them up really aggressively. And that's just another factor where you got to react to that while you're trying to recalibrate your direction, and it's blind going over. And watching the guys who were really good on that turn, like Stefan Eberharder comes to mind, Koosh, obviously, Darren, you're always fast down there. But it was just so impressive to watch the commitment into that turn in particular, the right footer below the Hausberg, and that dictated your line across the traverse. And I'm just thinking about my last year there. I watched Axel Svendal. There was like a little hole that was developing right on the initiation of the turn. So Axel goes down, cartwheels in the fence. He was the number one racer at that time. Hannes Reichelt comes down, another guy who had won the Hahnenkamm in the past. He blows his knee, cartwheels in the fence. George Streitberger comes down, blows his knee in this hole. And I was running like right behind all those guys. And I knew at that point, it was my last year. And I got to that point and I just like gave a little stivvy and went inside that hole. And I was at that point in my career, I was just like, this isn't worth it, man. I don't have the headspace anymore. And that was one of the moments where I knew I was I was done. Cause like, if you can't embrace that feeling, be willing to commit on that turn, you shouldn't be there, you know? So, but that turn is just like Louis said, win or lose, or definitely win the race, was that turn. You had to commit.
Yeah, it's funny that I never had any doubt that I was going to, you know, make it from the start to the road. Like, you know, fast or slow, I was going to get there. I wasn't really worried about crashing in that upper section. Not so with Hausberg in the finish, man. I was always in fear of eating and going into the netting. I've seen so many guys crash down there and either hit the netting or go over the netting like Vitellini did, or, you know, like you described with Svindal and RCS last year, like just taking a right when you should have taken a left. I mean, like there's so many just nightmare scenarios that go through my head for that Hausberg section.
Yeah, you have to live it to truly appreciate it. And I thank you guys for trying to explain it to people who have never run it. It is just amazing. And you are just, it's amazing. You're going, I don't know, 65, it feels like 95 across this bumpy cliff side hill. And the amount of calibrations and math going in your head. Can I make that gate? You know, what do I have to do? All these decisions come through to make that last gate. And I just want you to describe what it feels like to get to the finish. Win, which I never did, but lose or draw. When you make it to the finish, you have a smile. You are just energized beyond feeling, and just sharing that with everyone around you. Doesn't matter if they're German, Austrian, or Swiss. I just remember the finish of Kitzbuhel just being a happy place if you were on top of your skis. AJ, I want to go to your experience. First one on the podium in the modern era, second to Heinzer. What was that like? Did you come through knowing you would stay? Were you in first? Were you in second? Take us through that second place and what your feeling was all the way to the trophy stand.
So yeah, I mean, I had popped a couple of top 15s in Kitzbühel leading up to that in the years prior to that. So I felt pretty confident, and that was one of those days where I went out of the starting gate wanting to win that race. Like I had no fear. I was physically fit. I was strong. I was skiing really well. I was confident. And so, I mean, I left the starting gate attacking that course, which is such a great feeling all by itself. I mean, forget about the finish, but just having the personal fortitude and the confidence to leave the starting gate, attacking that hill, was just a great feeling. And I mean, like I said earlier, you know, I got into a good rhythm on the top, and I, you know, the line was good. You know, I executed well, and I hit the road, and you know, looking back at the split times, I won the top section from the start to the road. I was first. I was one of the faster speeds entering the road, and you know, me as a glider, you know, had I had the benefit of narrating my own run at that time, I would have been like, okay, I got it locked up because I'm a glider. I'm going to kill everybody here on the road. And then all I got to do is get to the finish line. So, but not so much, right? I mean, I lost a ton of time on the road, and I don't know if I made a mistake or we missed the wax or whatever it was, but I got on the road and I was leading the race, and Heinzer had already gone down the hill. So, I mean, you know, as I crossed the finish line, I knew what my result was, but also in those split times we knew. And I ended up, you know, showing up at the top of the Hausberg after that middle section. I was 9/10 back. So somehow in the middle, I lost time. And this was before the new section was created with the extra turns and the jumps. So, I mean, basically, like, I guess I screwed up, you know, Alta Schneise and didn't tuck the Mogul Field very well, I guess. But again, I didn't know anything about that during my run. I was gunning it. And, you know, again, that jump and entry to the side hill, jump over Hausberg, entry to the side hill, it just went well. I mean, I landed in the right spot. My timing and rhythm was just right. And I, you know, hit that side hill perfect. And I tucked down the Zeal and flew off the finish jump and crossed the finish line. And, you know, you look up and the board is there, and I was in second place, and I came off a victory earlier in the season in Val d'Isère, and I was, you know, fourth or fifth in Val Gardena. So, I mean, I was rolling, things were going well. And second in Kitzbühel was amazing. And, yeah, it felt great. I mean, my mom was in the audience. She was there. She'd flown over. So that was cool to have family in town. And I mean, yeah, it was great. And I mean, from that point, I'm like, yeah, I'm winning this next year. No doubt. Like I'm on a roll. I'm going to, you know, I'm going to do better next time. So, which, you know, obviously we know didn't happen, but It was an incredible experience to be able to charge that hill. Forget about the result. I mean, I always tell kids that race now, I'm like, don't think about what happens after the finish line. Think about the process, think about the run, enjoy the run. And I literally today enjoy the feeling I had during my run more than I enjoy being able to hold this thing up, and honestly, it was, and this is, a little tongue in cheek, but I used that result for years with Darren. He'd won races, he'd won world championships, and I can still tell him, but I'm better than you in Kitzbuhel. Better. I was second. Your best in Kitzbuhel is 6th or 5th or 8th or whatever. And then I got the call one day. It just crushed my world when he won it.
Oh, thanks, man. I have to say my best feeling ever as a ski racer was getting in that gate, at all these tough races, especially at the Hahnenkamm though, and having that full commitment, just ready to find out what I was made of, but ready to give it all. That was a defining moment that probably I live for more than anything else. Yes, it's nice to back it up with being fast on the hill, but to just be in that position and ready to give it your all with no doubts, I think was the most gratifying thing I ever had. And
Darren, we have to, if you can truly describe it, what's it like being announced as the winner of the Hahnenkamm in Kitzbühel?
Well, I think the biggest defining moment for me, I was talking to Rudy Huber today. I'm in Austria. I'm in the atomic homeland here in Altenmark. Just stopped at Schladming to link up with Rudy Huber, who was the race director at Atomic when I was racing. And we were talking about kits, and the defining moment for me was being on the podium. I shared 3rd place with Stefan Eberharder. Werner Franz was 2nd. Hermann Maier wins. So a sweep for Austria, except for I was in 3rd there as well. But to hear Hahnenkamm sieger Hermann Maier get announced at the nighttime awards in front of thousands of people up on the hill was probably, it was the craziest moment I ever had. It was before being on top of when I won. Cause I was at that point, I was so fired up, to have a great result, but I wanted to be that guy. I wanted to feel what that was like. And it was just, I kind of felt destined that day. I don't know. I'm like, this is my day. And it was a day with weather and all that and everything. But I had a 3rd place there in 01. I'm walking to the press conference. I think Tom Kelly gets AJ on the phone. And like you just said, we still know who the best American is there in Kits, right? Congrats, buddy. But I'm 2nd and you just got 3rd. I
milked that cow.
You know who the man is there in Kitzbühel. I think my reply was you got that right, AJ, but you're retired, man. I'm coming back. I'm going to win this thing. And in 02, I was all about the win. Came off Stahlhung I just came in 2 direct, went off that basketball blind roller we were talking about, and I was locked in on not happy birthday line. I was locked in and slamming the fence. Both skis came off. My race was over. I thought it was a dream. And I was I actually popped back up. I was jamming down the road on my back, flipped over my stomach, popped back up, and tuck skied on my boots for another 300 feet. And then came to a stop, and it was most ugly feeling I could ever have. But then the next year, 03, came back and took it. And there's just so much going on. And we were talking about everybody cheering for you. Well, U.S. section on the right side with Junior Hitcher, TJ, my sister, all these Tahoe buddies, and and they had the American flag, California flag waving. I would just shoot right over there to them and slam up against the fence and give those guys a little what's up, and then go into the corral area. But yeah, it was so fun to share it, right? And when you win the Hahnenkamm, there's a lot of cool things that happen. One's the gondola. You get your name on a gondola, number 91. If anybody makes the Kitzbühel, make sure you wait for that one. Take a ride. But then there's the Siegerstrasse, so Winter Street. And at the end of the award ceremony that's done right after the race in the finish area, only the downhill winner gets to walk out of the finish area to this trap door that pops up in the race corral, the bottom. It like lifts up, there's stairs that go down, and it closes after you and you're gone. I saw Herman walk down that the year I was third, and I was like, all I want to do is find out what was down there. I want to ask him at the next race or awards that night. And I was like, you know what? Like AJ said, I'm not going to like carve my name into the starthouse until I win this thing. I'm never going to know what's going on down there until I win this. And, you know, you have all these amazing thoughts of, I thought it was like, okay, all the past like legends of the you know, Hahnenkamm are down there high-fiving you, best schnapps in Austria. And there's none of that through there. It's cool, but
y'all still want to know.
But yeah, it's not quite like that, but it's pretty cool. It's an escape, you know, route to get out of there. And it's just another way kind of just Kitzbuhel separates itself from.
Where does it pop up? Where do you come out?
I'm not telling you, man. I don't want you, you know.
In
Neverland.
The race building over there where they have the awards.
How do you know, Marco?
Oh, it goes that way?
Yeah, it doesn't. I don't know.
Yeah, so I'll let you know. So you go downstairs, it hooks a right, and up on the wall there is some cool plaques. And there's like the podium, really nice, like nicely done plaques. And there's a, you know, podium of the names and then all signatures on these, like, you know, on the steps. And then it goes out, comes up through this like kitchen at the Redbull house, which is that where they have the official awards and where the, you know, commentators are, the, you know, the TV crews up there, but it comes out underneath that place. And so you just bypass a ton of people, you know, but there's still people know, you know, fans know that the winners have come out of there just over the years seeing them. So they're stacked up and it's madhouse there, but it's pretty cool. You know, it's something a little extra going on there in Kitz. But I'd say it was just unreal. I mean, that was my number one focus every year was to try and do it there. And yeah, I had a lot of close calls too, of 2 100s from a win. I had 7 podiums there, 2 fourths. Those ones probably hurt the most. 2 fourth places in Kitzbuhel sucks.
Yeah, the other, you know, just circling back real quick, Louis, you asked about one word. You know, the other one I was thinking about was tradition, because it really is. I mean, Kitzbuhel's all about tradition. And, you know, Darren, you know, you said that you used to go to the finish line when you drive in every time. And I wonder if that started with us, because the tradition that existed when I came on the team, Louis, was you were a rookie until you finished Kitzbuhel on race day, and then you got your veteran status. And I honestly, like, it was a bit of a hazing ritual too. Like the veterans would really make it difficult on the guys that had never raced there before, like maybe over embellishing just a little bit about how dangerous it is and all that. And that tradition continued for me. You know, Louis, after you retired and Darren and these guys came up and they would ask us about Kitzbuhel and what it was like, man, we took that opportunity to really make it difficult on them. And certainly to this day, the first thing I do when I drive to town, I mean, I've been over there a few times the last few years, and I pull into town, I drive to the finish line. Like, I want to see that baby right away. And, you know, we used to do that in the team van. When we pull into town, we go, and it's like, okay, time to start the relationship today for the week with this course. We're going to introduce ourselves and we're going to get on the right foot. And so, you know, these traditions at a place like Kitzbuhel are really special, and they evolve, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I didn't know about that. I didn't know that you guys did that, you know, but that was something that, I mean, I ended up doing on my own, right? Metallica's cranked up, Ride the Lightning, rolling to town. I'm walking up to I actually walked up to the last jump, but it was like the one moment I could have the hill to myself, and I would talk to it. Like, I would give it respect, but I'm here to own you. You know, like, keep me safe. I'm basically talking to the mountain, like, you know, just help me go fast here. Keep me safe, but I'm coming out here to own you. And then I would actually go down to Londoner, have a beer and a Jaeger shot before the first team meeting. I'm not kidding. I'm like, seeing those guys, I'm like, I'm going to come here. I'm throwing down the hill. I'm not going to see you till Saturday night, but it's going to be on.
So the tradition continues this weekend with 2 downhills, one on Friday, one on Saturday. Make sure you tune in. Wake up early. Thank you to AJ, Marco, Darren, and thanks everyone for watching and listening to our American Downhiller podcast. If you liked it, spread the word, share with your friends, post about it, tell your coaches, teammates in your club. You can find us in audio form on either Spotify or Apple. Just search American Downhiller podcast and our video version exclusively on skiracing.com. It also helps a ton for you to subscribe and also give us a 5-star rating. Looking forward, our next podcast will cover a variety of topics, including U.S. Olympic team qualifications, the Olympic downhill course in China, more special U.S. ski team guests, and the final downhills on the circuit this season. Don't forget to watch Kitzbuhel races this Friday and Saturday on Peacock and NBC. Thanks, and always remember, ski fast, take chances.